into. So Chris is here today, and I'm going to turn this over to him because he hasn't been here for a while, and he's probably got things to share. But I do want to talk about this one thing that's been in my field since I got back from Shasta, and I've had an opportunity after I kind of digested it, ran it by Dave Wallace, because it's one of those crazy, extraordinary phenomenon that I really can't put into focus yet. So here's what it is. When I was here the week before last and I had some time on my own to hike, I thought, well, what a great day to go and visit Fairy Falls. It was a great day. When I've been there several times before, but there was a couple things I thought I would do. I had obtained a gimbal for my phone. So this year when I was going to photograph, because I like taking pictures everywhere I go, it meant more when I took video where I went. So I get that. So I wanted to have some mechanism where it didn't look like I was walking, and this served a perfect purpose. I used a little while I was in Berlin to kind of get used to it, but when I was in Shasta, my idea was that I was going to park in the parking lot of Fairy Falls. And for those of you who've never been here before, I'm going to just record this entire trek up to and including the falls. Now, if you've been there before, you have some idea that it's, in my mind, it was about a 25 to 30-minute hike. You don't stop along the way. That's about what it's going to take to, this is just straight uphill pretty much for this entire trip. I left the car and started to record in the parking lot. And the intention was that I'd travel a little bit, stop that particular recording, so I didn't have one long freaking 30-minute tape later, and I'd have a series of these smaller ones. In the end, there were 19 files that took me from where I was to where I needed to get. And when you looked at the timestamps on each one of them and totaled them up, I'll be darned if this wasn't 30 minutes and 56 seconds. Now, when I play it back, that's an entirely different thing. The first 15 files, and I only found this through trying to understand what went on. When you played a few moments into it, and a few of them were longer than others, it went into SloMo. Now, I'm telling you, when I was there were energies that I could sense while I was there. I had the place pretty much to myself. There was a couple of four, looked like a husband and wife and his two kids. They'd never been there before. They passed me, so I kind of pointed them in the direction of the falls, and off they went. There was another single woman about my age that lived in the area, but admitted she'd never been here before. She was the only other person I saw hiking. So as I was moving up, I made sure that they just cleared my camera frame so that they weren't included in any of the footages. But other than that, it was just me making this trip. To make a long story short, when I played this file back end to end, it's over 171 minutes long. We're still trying to figure out what kind of, Dave describes it as a time dilation. And it would make sense that, some vortex that I found myself in, just like when I went to Telos. That day I thought I was in there for hours. No, what was it in the end? An hour and 22 minutes or 44, whatever it was. It wasn't what I thought it was. And so this is the first one. Dave heard about it. He said, I'd heard about this phenomenon before. They call it time dilation. And now you finally have evidence of it. So don't do anything with that file. I had intended to take the end-to-end version and post it up on YouTube. I tried last week when, all this was coming together. It's a 20 freaking gig file. So if I continued with it, I think I started it before I went to bed. And it had like 11 or 12 hours to go to get it up there. Well, in the morning when I got up, it still had 11 or 12 hours to go. So, well, this isn't going to work. So I'll maintain it here and figure out along the way. And I had put this together in iMovie, the simple little app that's in your iPad. Now, since then, there is another one, a more sophisticated tool that I'd seen and I'd heard about called Final Pro. It's made for Macs and people that do a lot of video stuff. It's a lot more sophisticated than iMovie, but actually pretty simple to use. So when it became available a few days ago for iPad, I thought, you know what, I'm going to get it. It's $5 a month to rent it, and let me see what happens. So when I picked those 19 files to pull into Final Pro, only the last 4 of them would import. The first 15 files wouldn't even come into the program. So that's me.
Maybe you didn't have permission to download them yet, or needed to be a special time. I don't know.
I'm hoping for clarity. Dave sent me another email, which a text message about this situation. So I'm going to tell you what he got, and then you can discern it for what it is. He has a connection with higher beings and resources for things that we don't quite understand yet. So he did ask them, and here's what he came back with. It said, tell your friend he was bathed in what we know as anti-chronotons. Anti-chronotons are used by beyond Earth sentients to observe your species and eliminate observation within a controlled radius of the specimens to be observed.
Wow, it's interesting you said the word chronos, because that's been a thing that they've manipulated, maybe that about time that I don't know a whole lot about, other than I work in a big, working in big hospital companies. Many of them have a program called Chronos that is actually your time clock in and out.
Yeah, very familiar with it.
And there's a lot more to Chronos. That's how I don't know who they are, could control our time, in a good or bad way. I'm not sure.
There was another discussion Dave and I had in the last few weeks, really after I visited him for a few days. And it took me a while to assimilate it and really let it sink in. And it had to do with what level of understanding he's gotten. Because in order for us to understand travel the way we're going to travel next in our light bodies, there are certain elements of understanding how our reality is created. And so when he told me that there were 4 elements that are included that make our reality: time, sound, gravity, and was it space? Yeah. And once you understand the relationship between those 4 and what makes those 4 interact, then you can have an influence on it. So time, the way that we understand it, is this linear model that we base on. Our clocks, our calendars all continue to go the way that we think they're going. And in the scheme of the universe, that's just a timeline that we're on. That's all it is. But we have to see things from a different perspective to be able to understand that. And even at that, even as advanced as I think my awareness is of these things, examples like where I had sensed there was energy, and it was great. Fairy Fall is just as magnificent as it is, and to feel nature there is. There's just no way to put into words what you feel when you're in Shasta. The fact that I had another profound experience like this, and again, here's some evidence that I captured somehow. I've been able to do it in photographs before. And it certainly wasn't that, when Kumu came along, she kind of started that whole ball rolling. But I always wondered, if we got to the place where we could start to capture video, what would that be and what would it look like? Well, now we have some ideas of what that's going to be. And it makes me very curious for this project in Berlin, how that might translate into things that we're involved in. So that's enough for me.
Yeah.
Tell me about you, and you and I have the same passion for Shasta. I don't know that we seem to get up there as often as one another, but why don't you tell others about your experiences there?
Okay, well, basically my path to Shasta was, I'm a healthcare worker. I'm a radiation therapist. And during this awakening and learning what's been going on, I've been drinking from a fire hose and been inundated with more things than I could imagine. Learning, family history and things like that, that I don't know if I want to go all into that. But so anyways, my wife and I sold our home in Minnesota, another connection, and came out to California, and we're going to all these different places, and ended up hitching our trailer semi-permanently in Auburn, and I'm working in Grass Valley. And in the process of, you come across meeting all these people and listening to all their shows and everything. And, Rob Potter happened to be one of those guys I saw on somebody else's show talking about this thing in Shasta. And I'm like, I'm a nature guy. I grew up on a mountain. It's like, this sounds pretty cool. I have, a music background, and I've worked with, different, side companies doing, business seminars and things like that. I'll volunteer, that's just like, I like to get involved, so I volunteer, and you know how those events run. And before you know it, I'm pretty much me and another guy get the world thrown at us, and it's changed every 10 minutes because that's how this function goes. It's very much in flow and doesn't have a structure.
Yeah, I remember how we met at the Shasta conference that Rob was holding, and something had shifted, and all of a sudden you're the director of AV.
Yeah, exactly. I was the guy in the big room running, trying to make the show go smooth and keep the energy flowing. You know how that could be. And everybody's like, oh, I can't hear this, I can't do that. And everybody's coming at you with all these different things. But I love that kind of challenge. And but it appeals to the showman side of me, because I've played in bands and been a fitness instructor. I like to be that, but then I also like to be like here, just with myself and being, and the powers that are, in the world, and just feeling it. But so I've met a lot of people at those things, like Lowell and a bunch of others. And over the last few years, like Lowell said, you get to know that this world is just like any other world. There's all different levels of engagement and energy levels, and I don't want to say agendas, but yes, some people do have agendas. Mine's just trying to learn about myself. So this has been, like Lowell's mentioned it before in different shows. Reason why this is my first time on this show with you, but I feel like I've been part of it because I listen to most of them if I can, especially if Dave's going to be on it, because it's another guy that I just connect with real well, that I met last summer and got to spend some time with. But as far as what brought me into this, I just, like I said, learning from a fire hose, and now I'm to the point where I'm just trying to, I'm not going to as many of these type of events. Like I went down to Orlando, saw you down there as well. And I'm learning more and more as I've met more and more people. I can still keep in touch with you guys, but I don't need to spend, $1,000, $1,500 or more, for plane tickets and hotels and this and that and the other. And I'm thankful to be right here, just south of Shasta. I'm like 3.5 hours away. And like many other people that have come to the Shasta area, it kind of has a hold on you, and people from all walks of life are called here. And I'm one of those too. I don't, I see myself as a healer, but I'm still I think I do it already because that's what my job is. And I incorporate a different kind of energy with the people I work with. I don't like the word patient anymore because I've learned a different definition of it. That means it's a term of using a person to get money out of it. Is I can't remember the exact words of the definition, but it doesn't mean the same anymore. But the people I work with and watching their journey, they find out the worst news that physically, for their health, it could be that they have this big C word, and I've been doing this for, I don't know, 16 years or more. It's kind of a second career for me. I started it when I was 40, and I've gone through all the different phases of it. And here it is. It's just another energy form, but it's a man-made energy form. And you can see, working with different doctors over the years in many different states I've been in, their intentions and how they use it. And I worked with one doctor for a very short amount of time because, being a man, you probably know PSA, your prostate specific antigen that they check for prostate cancer. And he's got his feet up back in the control area where we're working, playing solitaire. You know what PSA is? Personal savings account, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And he's telling us this, and I'm like, wow. And
that's your healthcare provider.
Yeah. And he was the same guy that would be smoking outside the door and the patient's telling him not to smoke. I'm like, but you come across all kinds, and I still see some of the good that this does, but also know that I'm transitioning out as the world is transitioning out of all these, I don't want to say like 3-dimensional type treatments and things, but know that we're evolving, and we have the power within to heal ourselves. And that's what I try to instill in every patient that comes. They'll go, oh, thank you for healing me. It's like, I'm just an instrument here. I know I have nothing to do with that. Your attitude and the love I've seen grow in you in the last weeks is the reason why you're healing. It's you opening up and accepting that, yes, you can heal yourself. All we're doing is, I tell them, all we're doing is irritating you. And we're irritating the bad cells and the good cells. The good cells can repair and reproduce, but the bad cells go away. You're the one healing yourself.
Yeah, that's really important for people to digest, that the idea that they're going to a healer, genuine healers are just examples. They're not there to help anyone else heal, because you can't heal somebody else. We have no idea what their journey is. We have no idea what lessons that they're supposed to learn. And all we can do from the outside is send them love and light and allow that to happen, because really, in the scheme of things, their healing affects the collective as well, but they have to do it on their own. We're sovereign beings with free will. We have to respect that for everybody. So it's important to understand that the majority of people wandering around looking for some kind of healing from beyond themselves still don't get it yet. And I'm thrilled when I see somebody get triggered by whatever the purpose is, and they've found something that now they need to research for themselves, and it made them feel better. And then you can introduce the ideas that every sickness that we've ever created, we have set a mind path for it to kind of nest in ourselves. I haven't been sick in so long, and I don't like to talk about myself. It's not about that, but I will use this as an example. Since I had this TIA and had surgery on it in December of 2015, I haven't seen or been inside of a medical facility since. Had no need to. When you just kind of surrender yourself to the universe and let it take care of this, it does. 35 pounds went somewhere else, without me creating a diet program or an exercise program. My flexibility is restored. My joints feel like I was a teenager again. Now you tell me, I credit that to meditation practice first. Never mind the rest of the stuff that's happened. That's where it got me settled enough where I could get in touch with something, whatever that was, greater than myself, that they always said, if you can quiet your mind, you can get there. Well, it took me a long time to get there, but I'm there. And I understand what kind of powers we have as a result of that kind of realization and that kind of reestablishment of that connection. I'm not special when it comes to that. I'm just further along my journey than the rest of you, but my physicality is no different than the rest of you. So you can all do this.
Yes. It goes for, you asked me in the beginning, how did I kind of get here? And it's like, I've searched outside for everything. I've probably spent a few $100,000 and gone to more workshops than you can imagine. I've walked over fire coals. I've gone on sweat tents. I've, you name it. You could list off a number of things, and I'll just go, yep, yep, check that, read that book, yeah, went to that workshop, And then the cool part is when you get to the point where you've done all those things, and you get to the point where like Lowell's saying that, it's all right here. Anyway, it's just the gift of each breath that we breathe in and feel through our nose. And as your affirmation today blesses your body, because we're blessed. That's the beautiful picture you had out on your page today. And just realize that it's been a progressive realization, and the exciting part is it's never done. It
You're
grows with
evolving
each breath.
constantly. Yes. When you're done with this lesson, you step up for the next one. That's what we're here for. We're here to assist the universe to evolve. If we believe that we're all sparks of source, which we definitely are, our job was within the soul contract we created for this particular incarnation. Here are the lessons that I decided to learn. And because this is a realm of contrast and duality, when we learn something, we're going to learn the good and bad elements of it both. And none of us are on the same journeys. We weren't meant to be. When you were talking about, your method of realization and mine, they weren't the same, and they weren't meant to be. When we hear stories about other tribe members, we can point to things that we can find commonalities in, but they were never meant to be the same. And my point is, what we're beginning to realize is that there is something, a gift that you hold that you have mastery over. You and you alone. You're the only one that mastered that particular thing. None of us are going to be able to replicate that, and nor should we. Because when the tribe has Chris, whose gift is this, we don't worry about learning Chris' gifts. We have Chris. That's the whole purpose. So this whole process is getting back to trying to figure out what mastery we already hold. Because if there was ever a time for us to come in command of it again, it is now.
And, like I've been searching, and it's like, okay, well, I have to put a label on it. What is it? Are you, this or that? And it's like, no, I'm just learning that I just have to be and hold my space and be connected. And that's I wake up in the morning and start with that. You mentioned meditation. That's something that's really, I think, brought me quite a ways. That's a wonderful way to start. And then whenever I go out in nature, that's just a living meditation. When it's pretty cool. But all the synchronicities and different things that happen, like a program like this that when I listen to the other people on it and go, you know, like you say, that there's commonalities, but we're all on our unique thing. It's like when you bring up different subjects, and it's like we all have a piece of that, and it's you know, just like you're seeing the mountains differently than I am that are behind me, you know. You know, it's just it's cool when you get to the point where you can't put it in words, because you know, whatever it is, it's beyond that, you know. And
That's exactly the phrase. That's what I was just thinking. It's beyond our ability to describe things dimensionally that we see and experience now, because our vibration's high enough to do that. How do you describe things that we were never shown, and things that don't really belong in this realm? There are no descriptors for them, but it's very 3D of us to want to be able to label it in some way.
Yep. That's why, you know, like I when I was first coming up here and up the Shasta, and then I, you know, learn about your story and you know others, and how I was led here by listening to somebody, and then I got in contact. Okay, where's some good places to go, and then I end up, you know, coming across people, you know, and going up on the mountain with them and experiencing from their point of view, and it's so cool that we get to do this and have spiritual interaction, you know, like we're sharing energy right now, but then we also gotta, it helps to bring up the, you know, raise the tide for everybody.
Yes.
I think, you know, like when I shared that power versus force, whatever that big sheet, and then, you know, it showed it in all different kinds of ways of looking at it, and it's very interesting. It's you know, I can look at that and go, gosh, you know, I remember this low phase of my life, you know, and so thankful that I've learned so many lessons, and I've worked my way up, and it's like it's a daily process that it'll never be done. It's like the ones that I aspire to, you know, communicate with and things like that are of higher energy, that are like in the mountain here, you know. Whenever I go up and hike on the mountain, I'm like, okay, I know Lowell was here, you know, because I can look at my GPS and go, yeah, he shared some of these numbers, and I'm like right there, you know, I'm right there close to it and everything, and then but my experience is totally different. I can tell you, like, some of my moments on the mountain, it's not like I've had somebody come out of a hole in the ground and say, hey, come on down, you know, but it's been totally different for me.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Well, not yet, but I know it will. But
I totally believe that. Not just believe that, I'm convinced of that. That's what the Lemurians have been not suggesting. This is what they intend, beginning now, that they're going to begin to make greater contact with those that are on the surface for a variety of reasons. One, they want you to know that they're here. This isn't, it's not sci-fi. It's not fantasy. We need to come into a real good comprehension of what multidimensionality is. And then you are in a place to be able to understand beings that exist around you that you can't communicate with yet, because your vibration lacks the ability to do that. But
and we get distracted easily and lose that energy.
Yeah, we've been given all kinds of influence now, divinely, to get our attention right now and to restore that ability to understand that what we have inside of us is greater than all this. And the reason all this is happening is Earth's rising into a whole different level of consciousness on her own. And it has nothing to do with the rest of the sentient critters that are crawling on the planet. So in order for us to enjoy where New Earth is going, which is what we came here to do, we all need to vibrate at the same level when she gets there. And we're this far from that phenomenon playing itself out.
Yeah. pretty amazing to think of that. But so the difference is you're knowing because you've actually seen them and spent time with them. I'm believing. So there's going to be more and more people knowing because they've personally experienced it. I'm happy with, believing it because I've been around enough people that have experienced it. It's kind of funny. My youngest daughter, I brought up my whole family and my sister and brother-in-law to this area as well, and they all have their different levels of how they experience it. My wife isn't one of those that's open to these kinds of things. So, some of the things we talk about, that there's actually beings and Lemurians, the amazing beings. And the youngest daughter, she goes, well, if Chris doesn't show up again, we'll know he's off in the mountain. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's probably true. Yeah.
I know
so
that
they get it, the different levels, the family. So
that's wonderful to hear. It's not advice I give. It's a perspective I offer to others. Just be open. And I tend to live my life this way now, as opposed to the other way I used to, where I used to shut out things because they could never happen because I couldn't conceive that in my little mind. I tend to look at things as, well, wait a minute, what if that is true? What if that impossibility is really possible? Let's see what that looks like. And my life has changed dramatically. I see those magic things now because I've allowed myself access to it. And when I asked for the miracle to show up, I didn't say, no, can't be true. Then they just get you ready. It takes a while to assimilate the things that you've been through so that you can put it into perspective. And as wonderful as Telos was, here marked my first multidimensional experience, and I didn't know what it was. What I understand now is that in the beings that are in Telos, the Lemurians that are there, we communicate regularly. But what it opened me up to, because the visions that I've had and these other dimensional experiences I'm beginning to have don't take me back to Telos. That's because there are a multitude of other cities in inner Earth that we're being drawn our attention to. And many of them have humanoid forms just like us that have all been waiting for our vibration to match. I won't go into, the other sentient beings that are already here that reside in higher dimensions that are benevolent and have just been waiting for us to communicate with them as well. They have lots of things to share with us when we're at the place that we're able to do that. It's just another example of when you finally get a hold of one idea, like Telos exists, that Telos isn't the only city like that exists. And that's what we want you to open your mind to.
Yeah. There's unlimited potential. There's if you look at, you're talking about like the space energy, the four things that Dave was talking about. You look at the light spectrum, we're just like a one little dot blip on it that we can actually see. The space is, an atom is 99.99 whatever space. I should be able to just run my hand right through you. And there, so energy is something I can't do that because of energy, or is it energy, or what is it? It's just amazing how it all works together. And like Einstein came up with the E equals mc squared, and that probably doesn't have some of the processes in it that are quantum or other dimensional. So you got to look at it differently. Like what's the speed it's moving, the space it's occupying, the energy it has, and it's a whole different equation now. And people like Dave are coming with us with things like that. And it's, in my family, it's kind of interesting when you look at how things are, because my oldest brother is being we're a Brady bunch. There's step brothers, He's in the music business. So he's experienced all these things, and he says, I got a few good books in me, but he doesn't say anything because he worked with like Madonna, and he was with Michael Jackson in the studio 2 times a week, one-on-one, getting ready for the This Is It tour right before he died and things like that. I'm sure if I could really get some detailed stories out of him, but then another brother who's worked with he was a Air Force Academy guy. And he's like a rocket engineer or whatever. He's worked with Space Wars, in the Ronald Reagan days. He was kind of like an advisor, and now he works with space debris. I remember specifically years ago, he said, well, I work with nanotechnology with all the 3-letter agencies you know of and don't know of. And I'm like, that was, back then I was, younger, whatever, as a kid, it's like, cool. Now I'm like, but now he's quit that. He doesn't work for that company anymore. And now he works with space debris and trying to clean up space. And he's one of those that knows the calculation of an asteroid hitting the Earth, things like that, and goes around the world doing talks. So it's like, it's kind of interesting that a different perspective. We're not a real close family, because but being able to reach out with them every once in a while and get little tidbits here and there, and that's enough to keep my interest in going, because I know now, I don't need to bathe in all that stuff like I used to, like, drink from the fire hose and all that. It's more important how I keep my energy. And that's something that you talk about a lot too, because it's so easy to get tied up in all that. So, so I realized that these different light spectrum, energy spectrums, magnetic energy, all the different types of things that all work together. If I can just stop and feel the space in myself and the feeling I get from it and things like that, I try to spend more time on that now instead of getting lost in all the outer world things, so.
That's really good to hear. My guides have been pounding this into me and remind me to tell others that now is the time for you to tend to your own flame. Take care of this. And believe me, that'll resonate and send ripples out to the collective when you got yourself into, a position. I've been through lots of relationships, throughout this particular incarnation. And I understand better what the 3D part of that was and how it limited the results of those relationships. Now, when I see that, when I focused on loving this first, it was easy for me to find ways to love everything else beyond that. And then I had a choice as to where I wanted my attention to go. And if it didn't resonate with me, well, I just sent it love and light and sent it on its way, but I didn't spend any more of my attention there because tribe was beginning to show up. When you start to vibrate like that and your light begins to emit a little bit more, you get people that draw themselves to you, just like Chris and I drew each other to one another, because not that he had something to teach me or I had something to teach him. We just knew that the vibration was common and that we all knew where the world was going, and we all wanted to somehow, whatever contribution I can make individually, whatever contribution you knew you could make, and everyone else that's showing up in the tribe, all show up for the same reasons. And not that we're all going to replicate it, or we're not going to learn some thing that was handed to Lowell by something greater than himself that all of you are going to benefit from. It works in that way in one regard, that what I was intended to do, that all those resources come to me, and that's the role that I play. But that doesn't mean it's going to be replicated by everybody else. because Chris's gift is different than mine. And there's a place for him to plug in where when the time comes, what Chris is going to do on behalf of the collective, no one else has the ability to do. And when he does, it's the simplest thing for him. We just marvel at it. I say that every time I get an opportunity to talk about whenever people begin to embrace whatever this mastery that they have and begin to exercise it, that's when you're going to really see a shift in consciousness happen. And if you look around us, you and I are really wonderful examples of people that somehow, and it looks like within this last 3 to 4 year window, this has caught on fire, because I was living the life everybody else was up to that point too. And why in the world would I choose this path now when I should be retired and traveling and, doing things like I did in the hospitality business? That's not where my heart is. No, I know that there's something bigger than this. And that leads down a whole nother rabbit hole of reasons why I am where I am. And, the things that I end up doing. It's not done. We're not done. I know for certain that I came back in this last incarnation was going to be here during Earth's shift. So you've heard me say this before, 69 years old, the clock is ticking. And although my body is in pretty good shape for somebody this age, I can just tell you with every solar flare that, is headed our way, I can feel those things happen now. And that is the phenomenon that's going to influence Earth to get to her next level of consciousness. It's just a matter of time. Look, if you're not paying attention, you might want to, just so you understand what's going on. But I made a point of paying attention to the physical residue of things that were happening, so that when they happen, I could kind of put it into a third dimensional sense. And when asked, I had an answer for somebody else that made sense. But that just comes in time.
Yeah, amazing. I'm just take all that in for a moment. But being a music guy, my mind likes to have fun. Okay, so here we are. God's having this tryouts for different orchestras of all different levels. And some people are going to be in orchestras. Some people are going to be listening to it. How we work with ourselves, our own energy, our gift, our instrument. And then God knows kind of what he's doing. He's going to put us in the right orchestra with the right section that's going to come out with the new Mozart of this day that's right for this moment. And there's all different level of orchestras. I grew up, I played in like the high school all-state orchestra or whatever. That wasn't nearly the same level as like, a college level one or professional level one, or go to a metropolis, level one. There's all different levels, and everybody has their instrument and their gift. And these tryouts are happening. We don't even know it. We're just being ourselves and on our path. And it's all, hence the word orchestration. It's all getting orchestrated. And it's cool when you get the right group together and you're just playing and you're just being, and you don't have to look at the sheet music anymore. I think we're getting to a level where we're not going to need there's groups won't need the sheet music anymore. I think you're kind of one of those kind of guys, because you've been playing in orchestra a little bit longer than some of us. But then once you're playing without the sheet music, there's always another level. Okay, what's the feeling and the story behind the song now that you know the notes? Okay, it came from the story of this family's life and wartime. How does that apply to us now? This is the new orchestra. What is that energy and that specific thing going to do at this moment? Incorporating the history and how we're moving forward. And it's just amazing and such a blessing to be part of this time. And the more you realize, the more you go, I barely know anything, but man, what a cool ride, huh?
That's a really great analogy. And I'm glad you put it that way for others to hear, because really that's what we're growing into.
Everybody has a part,
Yes.
Even if you're just carrying a music stand and putting it on the stage, you are an important part. It doesn't matter how big or little you think your part is, it's still a piece of this magnificent, piece of work that's happening, that's bigger than any of us can imagine.
True. That's true. I think beyond just thoughts of the 8 billion people that are on the planet now, 8 billion, and what the things that we talk about influence that. And then I think of, more advanced discussions that Dave and I have been having about travel beyond Terra and off planet, and what that mindset is. I'm not ready to spend a lot of time on there yet, because I'm still exploring what's going on here, and my curiosity about what's in the deeper areas of inner Earth is what's got my attention now. Dave seems to be the connection to things off planet and greater. And he's been nurturing that relationship with Kim Jim along the way now. And that's been going on since, I believe, 2017. Now, that doesn't go along without establishing some trust along the way. And that's why Dave continues to have the experiences he's having. And as I explained to a few others over the last week or so, there was a process that Dave had to go through first, that we all have to go through. Because in order to understand the vibration that they're trying to communicate to us, they've got to help us raise our ability to comprehend things at that level. So when you listen to Dave talk, really the first minute or so is language we all understand. And then he kicks into another gear of information that he's been fed from somehow in the Akash, that you can tell when you listen, it comes out like machine gun fashion, that Dave did not rehearse any of this. And wherever it's coming from, even Dave will admit it's coming from beyond him. But nonetheless, here's some really profound information from a guy who was not a math student when he grew up and went to school, and now has mastered physics to a level that he can explain it, see equations, and he's been given information to assist all the rest of us that's relatively unknown to what we consider, what we know about the things that Dave is about to speak about. When we got together, these are one of the 4 topics that he wants to cover over the next, I think we're going to begin Friday, June 8th, and then every Friday there will be another one, but it'll be an hour plus of Dave talking about the things that Dave knows. And man, I get excited every time I get to sit with him. I had 2 days pretty much of undisturbed discussions with Dave, and just let him dump. And now I have a greater appreciation for whatever was put inside of us, so that we could comprehend those things beyond us. That had to be done first. Now that that's established, then they can begin to feed us more higher level information than we had the capacity to understand and then communicate to others. Here we go.
I'm ready. I'm creating space, because there's going to be a big load of stuff coming in.
Yeah, it's quite true. There's lots of other phenomenon that's been going on that people are unaware of. There was the idea that there's been ancestral karmic loads that we've been carrying that we're totally unaware of. I didn't understand it, but it just felt like there was something. Anyway, just after the first of the year, there was almost this collective, for not just me and the ones that are aware, but it turned out, it seemed like for the entire collective on the planet, that whatever relief had been given to us eliminated that karmic ancestral load. So from that point on, things that happened to your grandmother that we've been carrying along, or your great grandfather that's just been carried along in your ancestral line, those have all been relieved. However, that karmic cord was dissolved or broken or whatever it is, it's done. So now you, little sovereign being, are free of that. And we had to clear our karma. That's what the fourth dimension's all about. Either you're going to recycle and reintroduce yourself in a reincarnation, learn some more lessons, or you're going to evolve. The fourth dimension is sorting out your karma so that you can ascend into the next level. But while we're talking about ascension, let me say this, what that Dave had actually said about a month ago, and I totally agree. We're no longer in the ascension process. I've ascended. Dave's ascended. You've ascended. The fact that you can express things from that higher perspective tells us all that you've already seen it and you have one foot in that realm already. That dimension straddling, here is the transition that's beginning to happen. And you have to have an awareness of it first before the physicality is actually manifest. But that's what we're going through. And so, these brilliant things that pop into our minds from, places we know not of, they're all so that the rest of us can kind of understand what's going on. And we're all going to have our own profound moments. We're waiting for that to take place. And here we're living in the middle of it. So I just want to underscore that whole ascension process. It is a process indeed, but many of us have already ascended. We're just here trying to express what we see in the next realm. And really the things that fourth dimensionally on the surface here that are around us, that when you vibrate at the right level, you can see and hear.
So do you see it as more of a remembering and the reason why we're going through this, or as a collective consciousness, or a little bit of both?
The collective consciousness in my mind is a result of everyone as they rise. That contributes to the collective. It's not really an intent we can put out there, because how are you going to get all these people to kumbaya together to raise the collective? But what you said first definitely resonates with me. Yes.
And that's
We're all
interesting,
getting
because
there
I've heard that a few other places lately too, so it's interesting how lessons come and you got to hear it a few different ways from a few different people sometimes to for it to
early in my journey, it had been suggested that Earth will ascend when the collective reaches the tipping point, when it's at 51%. Well, now I know that that's not true, because Earth's consciousness has nothing to do with humanity's consciousness. Those are two separate things. Planetary ascension and personal ascension, those are two different models. And so we understand that concept, and we have a chance of moving on beyond it. But it was never contingent on. And the more things are placed in my path, that book Power versus Force really wasn't in my field. I went back and read it quickly, and when I understand where the majority of the people on the planet vibrate, and who the others, the fewer on the other end, the amount of space you are holding to achieve that balance, that's where the real magic takes place. When it was suggested that I was a 725 on this list, and that there are only a handful of people on the planet that register at that level, then in retrospect, somebody that vibrates at over 700 is holding the space for 70 million others that are vibrating at a lower level. So here is how the energetic balance takes place. And it takes fewer of us holding greater space to do that. But there's not a lot of people that I know of that have registered over 600. And those that are really visibly awake, they tend to be at 4, which is a blessing, because the rest of the planet, the other 80 or 85% of them are hovering around 200. They're still not quite in the fear mode, but they're, they're in the steps of their awareness awakening and really come to terms with it outside of this 3D, concept that, we've just been conditioned with.
Well, the cool part as me, I love to be an observer, and observing other people and everything, and observing you over the years, like the 2-3 years, whatever it is that I've known you. There's only been a couple times I've one-on-one been able to talk to you. This is like the second time. Every other time it's at a busy convention or whatever, but I've observed your energy, and from the first conversation I had with you to now, it's like there's a definite difference.
Thanks for saying that. Somebody else has mentioned that, and we don't think of it while we're going through it. It's not to say that
You're
I
the
don't
same
have
guy
these
in the mirror,
profound
right?
thoughts. Exactly. That's my point. And I didn't see any of that, but I see it now.
Yeah.
Thanks for saying so.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm like them all. I go to where the light and the energy is, and it's cool to hang out with guys like you and Dave and things like that. It's just we collectively raise, and when our energies meld, like you say, we all have our different gifts, and I just love getting together with people. There's not too many people, these more and more these days, but that you can sit down and really talk deep about. Oh yeah, well, I know there's Lemurians in the mountain there, and or different things like that. Things that aren't in our program that that we grew up with, and it's exciting to just when you travel and you talk to people now, there's a different level of acceptance and a different feeling. I don't know if I have the exact words for it, but things are changing. You just know it. I can feel it in my work environment, with a lot of the people I work with, coworkers and people that come in that we work with. And it's weird that I think I mentioned this before. I wear this all the time. I remember when I first got it, my wife was like, "You're not going to wear that out on your shirt, because it's kind of like big and different, and it's new, and then in her mind it represents the woo woo part of me, or whatever you want to call it, But now it's she's more than open to it, and well, she's very supportive of me. I got to give you that. But then going out in the world, and the people that notice this, it's like all of them I could have a deeper conversation with just because of that. And Peter Minson, who makes these.
Oh, yes.
And it's all age groups, all things like that. And it's just a simple thing that represents something that maybe it holds a lot of thought and intention, that I put on it to like remind me of what I'm doing here, and to remind me to connect to myself and things, and things like that are pretty cool. And
yeah, those have energetic qualities, and they're very specific. I met Peter at last year's conference because he and Vivian were there, and there was a wonderful evening that Dave had an Airbnb and had invited a few of us to have dinner. That's where I got to meet Vivian and Peter in a really intimate evening, having dinner together. And Peter had shown the work that he had done and described the energy that comes from it. And since then, they're unmistakable, because there aren't anything else like that. I've seen them in other places, and so I know exactly where they came from.
Yeah.
When we open ourselves up to seeing ourselves more as these energetic beings, then the idea of connectivity to other things is easier to kind of understand. Um, and then a lot more things make sense. Then you'll understand that you're much more than this carbon body when you look at yourself energetically. And you're about to boost yourself into your light body form. And I know, there are a lot of people that might listen to this and not understand what that is, but there's just as many that do understand what that means now. And that this physical thing that we riding around in this bodysuit, that this incarnation we've chosen in this particular density, well, in the next stage, this density no longer exists. And neither does this thing that wears out in 80 to 100 years, which you're about to boost into, that, the civilization I've been around already. I've seen where we're going. Those flawless conditions are because those are crystalline bodies. Those are light forms. And that's where we're evolving to. So whether they last 100 thousands of years or whatever it is, it's a comprehension that we no longer have to worry about because we're not in this density anymore. We're getting to a space where we're going to move into a new level of consciousness, and everything will make sense. You referred to a moment ago, and I wanted to kind of underscore that too. It's a recall. We're not learning anything new. We are just in command of things that we've experienced over time. And now we have command of those resources again. That's what this is about.
Yeah. Coming back into that. And it's interesting because, you and I, both love nature, and nature holds so much wisdom and so many answers for people who want to observe and see and learn. I just, well, is it a moth that goes into a chrysalis and then comes out this beautiful, colorful, or, it's moth or caterpillar. I forget which one's which, but, it's, and it's interesting that the terminology and the words that they use when they go into that and what we're doing.
No, it's interesting you say that. And I had been told months ago that I was undergoing a metamorphosis. And I understood the concept. But I want to put that out there for others to start to consider. You're all going through a metamorphosis. Your physical being is changing at a cellular level and preparing for this next stage of physical evolution for us on this particular planet. All that's taking place, but we don't tend to look at things that way because we're still stuck in what we thought we knew, that we learned in school or church or from our friends or through our hobbies, or the things that shape our perception of our realities here with what we're conditioned with. All I can tell you is that there is more way beyond that if you just open yourself up to it.
I think you've experienced, like somebody imagine being efficient enough that we don't excrete anything, what we take in and whatever,
that was really
in the medical field. That's what I keep track of every day with everybody that comes in.
Ideas I have too. I wondered, when we get to this next stage and we're crystalline bodies, do we eat? Well, the answer is yes, they're vegetarian, but their systems are different. There's no restroom that they have to worry about running to at the end of it. They use their energy in its entirety in some way. And they don't eat because they need to maintain this physical form they've got. They eat because they enjoy it. That's it. Whatever energy they needed to take in their form comes from solar influences. And when you think of what we take in now too, and remember that you're an energetic body, all we're taking in, all we're ingesting is different flavors of solar energy. When we eat a plant, we're taking in solar energy in its purest form. When we take in dead animals, well, we're taking the same thing in, but we kind of step down the nourishment that comes out of that. But nonetheless, it's still all perpetuated by solar energy. Well, we're getting off on another topic, and we're
Yeah.
a little over an hour. So maybe I'm going to let you, kind of figure out a way that we can close this, and then we'll post this later for others to listen to.
Well, as always, Lowell, the thing I get out of this podcast that you do is the sharing of the energy, seeing different perspectives and how we can relate to it, and just be thankful for the gift that is us. And I'm learning to be every day. So I'm just thankful for this opportunity to talk with you and share this energy. And hopefully this goes out, this good energy goes out, and hopes, everybody connect to themselves, that they can heal themselves, and as we raise the tides.
Yep. It always does. Every time we're finished with one of these, I've yet to hear anybody remark negatively about the content that we've been covering. And I try and, I've got perspectives that I'll offer, but really this platform is meant for others to start to share their experiences. And I like to listen because, again, I want to find out a commonality that I didn't suggest in somebody. I didn't want to plant that influence in them. I want to hear about their journey to see how it aligns with mine. And that's when you can see the rest of the tribe showing up, because there's commonalities between all of us. We just know that what Chris is bringing to the table isn't the same as what Lowell's bringing to the table, but nonetheless, they're both important. Yeah. All right, pal. Well, I will see you.
Thank you so much for the time.
Oh, I'm glad you were here. Thanks for participating. See you soon.
Okay, talk to you.
Okay.
Bye.